RugbyRenegade.com, the #1 online strength and conditioning program for rugby. Are you ready to get bigger, stronger, fitter, and faster and dominate your opposition? Welcome to the Rugby Renegade podcast, where we build machines.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Rugby Renegade podcast. My name's Jamie Bain and today I'm going to be interviewing Ed Cosner, who is the strength coach to Ben and Owen Franks, the All Blacks props. But before we get into that, just wanted to explain why we're going down this route of doing these podcasts. And now myself and Dan Jones will also be featuring some of these podcasts. We've been fortunate enough through our careers to come into contact with some of the top strength and conditioning coaches, physios, speed coaches, nutritionists, and also players. We'll hopefully get a few players on the podcast as well. And through that and our own experiences, we want to share that with you by interviewing them, so you get some of that information, direct to you, to help you become a better rugby player and ultimately dominate your opposition. So that's the idea. In the coming weeks and months, we'll have some more podcasts with, people who are really the top of their field, giving you that information direct. So hopefully that'll be exciting. But anyway, on to today's interview. We'd heard of Ed Cosner, I think, first from the Franks Strength documentary, which was a documentary on Ben and Owen Franks, and their sort of links with CrossFit. It was a CrossFit-funded documentary. And then we sort of stumbled across each other on social media and suggested it was a great opportunity for Ed to be on our first podcast. Really great guy, full of energy, obviously be a lot of fun to work with, and he really knows his stuff. He's got some serious experience and has had some great successes in other sports as well as rugby, but has come now to sort of specialise in working with the front five in rugby. So when he gets down to talking to training, I'm sure you're going to get some really good information on exercises and things he thinks that are important. He really is a wealth of knowledge. So we're sure you're going to enjoy this. Check it out. Okay, well, I'm joined here with Ed Cosner, a strength coach who's probably in the rugby industry is renowned for working with the Franks brothers. Ed, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Oh, thank you.
Ed, as I said, you're probably most renowned from being featured in that documentary, the Franks Strength, the CrossFit documentary. But that's a little bit disingenuous to yourself. You've got a really good background with other sports and you've had success in other sports. So why don't you start by sort of telling us how you got into strength and conditioning and who you've worked with and what sort of success you've had?
All right. Well, I mean, the iron game, as everybody likes to call it, I've been involved in it now for a little over 35 years. Started when I was a kid lifting. This is in the 70s when nobody lifted weights. I mean, it was pretty much taboo for sports. And after the Army, I moved down to Corpus Christi to powerlift, Texas, just to powerlift for the 3-time world powerlifting champion down there. And that's where I really started kind of blossoming with it. And I moved up to San Antonio. When I was training in the gym there, one day a Spurs player came up to me. He had played at UCLA under John Wooden, was a first-round draft pick and everything else. John Wooden didn't allow, like most basketball coaches, didn't allow weight training. Thought it was going to make them, the normal muscle-bound, you can't move. It was going to hurt the game, that person's game. Yeah. And he was watching me lift, and asked me about it, and heard that it would help him. It would help improve his game, not hurt it. And David Greenwood and I started training together then. Met the Spurs, talked to some Spurs players, trained several of them. And after a while, I started coaching. It was the World League of American Football that turned into the NFL Europe. I coached there for a couple of years and then started I started going to school because you got to have an education. Just no one told me that. Hey, world-class powerlifter, shoot, I got to be able to, teach this. So, anyways, I started at the University of Texas at San Antonio as an undergraduate student, about 30 years old, and they didn't have a strength coach. They didn't have football then. They didn't have a strength coach. And since I'd worked with David Greenwood and several other Spurs players, I went and talked to the basketball coach. Well, he was more than happy to bring me on, and then another team wanted me. Within my first semester, I had all 18 sports, going to school full time. Still didn't make enough money, so I waited tables part time.
Crikey.
Yeah, and still found time to lift, train, everything else. So, but went off to Baylor University as a graduate assistant strength coach. Studied for my master's degree. Worked with my sports that I was assigned to: football, American football. Everybody has to help with, and then basketball, men's and women's, softball, and the track and field was the most fascinating for me because the track coach at UTSA was really helpful in teaching me how to kind of bridge that gap between what strength and everything we gain in the weight room and how to get it out onto the sports field. He was the one that taught me sprint techniques, sprints, medicine ball work, jumps, and everything else. So, but 98, after graduated from Baylor, I looking for jobs, goofing off, trying to find what I wanted. And Spurs strength coach and I had become friends, and they had the impending labor dispute and 98-99 lockout. And he wasn't allowed to work with the players, so he had a lot of them come look for me and come train with me. And after the lockout was lifted in January of 99, I got brought in to teach Olympic lifts, to teach a little bit more because that's what he wanted to move his way. So got hired by the Spurs. First year I was there, won an NBA championship. I stayed there through the 2003 season, winning a second NBA championship. So really started blossoming a lot more even then, started learning a lot more, having a chance to put my thoughts or philosophy into, into training. It's great when you have it for yourself. It's great when you're working with like a football lineman. Different when you're having to work with a 6'10", 7-foot basketball player.
Yeah.
And but my basketball players, I've had kids that are 6'7" and 7 foot tall, power snatch off the floor. They squat below parallel. Just because you're tall doesn't mean you're not supposed to be flexible, be able to move, being an athlete.
Yeah, definitely.
Not trying to be weightlifters, power lifters, but we're going to lift, and we're going to lift hard, and we're going to lift heavy.
Yeah.
And but back in 2006, I had a real good mate of mine, Ashley Jones.
Yeah.
Ashley's in Edinburgh now.
Yeah. I know of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I've known Ashley since '95 when he was in rugby league in Australia, and I went down to the Crusaders to visit and work a training camp. And I was down there for 6 weeks, and Ben was starting his second year, and he and I kind of gravitated towards each other, that mutual love for lifting. Owen was actually just an academy kid, and after the earthquakes in 2011, Ben reached out to me and asked me about becoming his personal strength coach because the guy that he had been using had to move away. So I programmed a real basic plan for him. While I was doing that, I really kind of studied my butt off, watching film, watching videos, talking to him quite often, via Skype, email, and everything else we could. So I could learn a lot more about, the position, the sport. Because, rugby in the United States is just starting to grow.
Yeah. And
so it was, even though I'd played, it was still better for me to learn that way, learn about it from him. And in November, before that, he asked me if I would come over after World Cup. I ended up coming over and spending 4 weeks, training him. And one day, we were lifting. It was time to start doing some running, and I broke out some just old agility drills that are used in American football from the middle school level all the way through. And a lot of coaches were pretty amazed at that. And Ben was as well. He's like, "Oh, this wasn't that bad." Like, all right, that's fine. And the next day, just tired, nervous system fatigue. I'm like, oh, look at that. That's what it accomplishes. And Scotty Hansen, who's a coach at Leicester, that was his personal coach at the time. And Scotty really kind of helped me move him from more football specific to more rugby specific by body positions, how they decelerate going into contact and everything else. So It was a lot of fun. And I mean, to this day, I continue to watch games, and I watch the Tight Five. I don't watch a lot of other parts of it. I do, as a fan, but for me, it's more important to watch Ben, to watch Owen, to watch other guys that I'm around and that I work with, so I can continue to work their program. So it's more individual. I mean, I'm blessed where I can do that because I train individual players. Hard when you're a sport coach, when you got 40, 50, I mean, American football, 105, football players. Yeah. So it's a little bit more difficult. But from all this, I mean, Ben has become such a fan of what I do and how I do it that he's actually wants to be a strength conditioning coach. Yeah. They're retooling one of their gyms down in Christchurch, doing some work with Front Row Club and everything else, and ordering equipment from a friend of mine here that's Sornex, that's a manufacturer, great equipment here in the United States, sending it all the way to Christchurch. So it must be some really good stuff if you're going to put it in a shipping container and send it all the way to Christchurch.
Yeah, definitely. So touching on that in terms of kind of the mental side of things, I think there's a clip in the Frank Strength documentary where you said when you first started working with Ben, he'd just come off, obviously he was a multiple cap All Black, he'd just won the World Cup, and he came to you and he's like, I need to do this, I need to do this, and he's obviously a very driven guy. I assume they both are. How's that to work with? Must be awesome.
It's great. It's great. Actually, you have to put a leash and a harness on him and pull him back some.
Yeah.
So that's even. I mean, as a strength coach yourself, that's even more fun and more exciting to have somebody that wants to be in there, that wants to put the work in, that's not afraid of it, and instead of having to convince them, prod them, push them that way.
Yeah.
So, but it works really well. It's like I said, it's difficult sometimes in that you have to reel them back in. You can't lift heavy all the time. We can't just do this all the time. We have to do other things as well. So, but once I have a real habit of that because I've worked with a lot of high school basketball players along with my college and especially in the NBA, even in the NFL. When I've done some training camp work and everything else, you have to get these guys to buy into what you're selling. And if you're full of crap while you're doing it, or you're trying to spout something you really don't believe in or you really don't know because you learned it in a book or you watched a video, players can see right through that. They want to see somebody genuine. Yeah. That's the way that they're going to buy into it. So I can get guys to do anything. I mean, I got a kid that was 6'7" to power snatch 105 kilos and power clean 160.
Nice.
So, and he was a 105 kilo basketball player.
Yeah.
So you really got to be able to do that. So Ben and Owen are a lot of fun. They're really driven, like you said. It's makes my job doing online training even easier because I know that they're going to do exactly what I tell them to do.
Yeah. So touching on what you said, and obviously with your basketball background, it must be a massive help. But I think sometimes, and especially in rugby, like you say, you've got those guys over 6'5", up to 6'10", who I think we kind of say, they're tall, they're going to struggle doing these lifts.
Right.
But obviously your experience with basketball, you can appreciate that you can get guys who are even taller than that, who can lift, do the full range Olympic lifts.
Right.
Have you seen that in rugby? Have you seen there's kind of this, they can't, they're second row shouldn't be doing that, and if so, how would you kind of get them to move away from that and show them how to do it?
See a lot of hang cleans, hang snatches, high pulls, not wanting to catch the bar, which is just as important, that being able the body's ability to be able to absorb force when it hits is just as important as producing force.
Yeah.
So I do high pulls some, but maybe through an injury or we're just having an issue catching the bar, and we're going to go as heavy as we can until we have to go to this. But we're going to continue to work on catching that bar. We're going to work on the mobility, the shoulder issues, tricep, whatever it is, because that it's real important to be able to catch that bar in the proper sequences. Not, knees not going forward, not leaning underneath it. Oh, good grief. We have, high school football coaches that have just killed kids with, this, I call it the Starfish Catch, when their feet jump out from the wood all the way out onto the rubber part of the platform and they lean back, looking like they're doing an old school press from the 1970s. Oh, but there's a girl, Andrea Hootie, with the University of Kansas basketball, and I've spoken with her before. I mean, I was doing this in the early 2000s. Now she's doing it and getting very popular with it. She does the same thing with her basketball guys. They power clean, and they hang clean some, but they power clean. They pull from the floor. They squat below parallel. For me, it's getting guys to understand, okay, if you think that you have these issues with your flexibility, whether it be ankle flexibility, knee flexibility, hip flexibility, well, how are you going to improve that? Well, shoot, power clean is going to help. Squatting below parallel is going to help. I'm not trying to make them big, strong power lifters. We're not sitting back like a power lifter. We're not going like a weightlifter. We're going to go to where they can. Yeah. I use a lot of pause squatting as well. When we first start getting, even with Ben several times, I assign a tempo to the squats. We're going to go down at this tempo. We're going to hold at this. We're going to come back up at that. If I see them sneak their feet out too wide, I remind them, or I make them squat in a box. I've had them tape a box to the ground, 24 inches for America. I don't know what that is for centimeters. But I keep your feet within that, because I don't want them sneaking out there, really wide. Yeah. So, but I just think that it's an important thing to make sure that they're strong in all their positions. Because I listen to Mike Crone. I listened to his son Daniel. Spoke to him quite often. He's with the Hurricanes as the scrum coach. Right. And other ones, and that's the one thing that they want to hear. They want to see. They want to see ankle flexibility, ankle mobility. They want to see hip and knee flexibility and mobility. They want that back to be flat. They want these certain joint angles. Well, we're going to stretch, but shoot, I don't have to do as much stretching if we're doing our lifts correctly.
Yeah, definitely. So you touched on Mike. Is it Mike Crone or Crone? Mm-hmm. And you worked over New Zealand with him. Tell us a bit about your experience in New Zealand. Obviously, it's a rugby mad country, but in terms of like the strength and conditioning over there as well.
Well, I've been able to speak to Mike several different times, trade emails with him, and that just to further learn about what he wants from certain players. I have a habit of going to sport coaches and saying, okay, I have your guy, I'm training your guy. Give me 3 things that we're going to work on this off season. I'm not going to sit there and try to evaluate it all by myself. So I'm going to ask him, and he's asked me certain questions about this exercise or this player. Hey, can you help this guy out? And so just keeping an open relationship with him to make sure that I'm doing what he wants done out of his players, not just what I see. And it's the same thing you do. You sit in meetings. You're listening, you're like, okay, they need, so-and-so needs that. That's what the sport coach says. Okay, well, I can get him to do this way. So that's mostly what that relationship is about. Yeah. When I go back in November, I'll go back down to train Owen for off season, and I'll be able to get and do a little bit more now that they're starting to do the strength training for, like I said, the Front Row Club down there. And so I'll be able to get in there and kind of get my feet wet and actually get my feet dirty and have some fun, doing all of that. Nice. So, and it's fun to explain to a sport coach that's open-minded. Yeah. A lot of sport coaches, they, especially in rugby in the United States, most of the strength training programs are done by the rugby coach, who has absolutely most of the time no business in the weight room. I don't know how it is over there with that, but here with even in college, because it's club, it's not a varsity sport where they have access to the weight room and that. So they kind of you don't know where they get some of their information from.
Yeah, that's interesting because like I said, obviously rugby isn't very big in the US, but apparently I'm told it's one of the fastest growing sports over there.
It is,
Obviously,
yeah.
with the sevens being involved in the Olympics this year, that's going to make it massive. I'm surprised you're saying that, because when I look at S&C over in the States, it looks so professional. Like every high school has strength coaches. The standard in universities phenomenal.
University is phenomenal. High school is getting there. But if they're not part of the university sport, if they're just a club, which would be an outside, supported some by the university, they don't have access to it. So it's the sport coach doing it.
That's interesting.
So most sport coaches don't belong doing it, that's, for sure.
Yeah.
And I never had a habit of, I have convinced sport coaches what we're doing, why we're doing it. I mean, and I get messed with a lot because, I don't know, maybe my personality, I enjoy being around people. So Coach Egan, Hank Egan, was Coach Popovich from the Spurs. That was his coach at Air Force Academy. And my second year with the Spurs, my boss was away, and I was in charge of doing some stuff and had the players out there. And I had some agility drills set up. I had some other things set up, and we were going through it. And Coach Egan come in to mess with me. He says, "Hey, that looks an awful lot like football drills." I'm like, really? I really don't believe that there's anything that specific. It's just movement. And I kind of went off my way. And he said it again. I looked, and so I was like, oh, well, you're right. Holy crap, they do these foot drills in football. Basketball players, they don't change direction. They don't go, they don't go lateral movement. They just jog backwards down the floor and then turn and jog up the floor. So I started kicking all the cones away and everything else. And I put all the guys on a baseline and was yelling that part out. Coach Egan just looked at me, shook his head, started laughing, and off he walked, just to see what I would do. But you got to be able to defend what you're doing to the coaches as well as the players, and tell them how it's going to help. But here they just don't want to. So a lot of them just don't want to reach out. They don't want to reach out. And if you didn't play rugby in the United States, here they don't even want to talk to you. I've tried to talk to USA Rugby several times. Here I am training Ben, Owen, and a few other guys, and going down there, talking to the high level coaches and high level players, and shoot, I can't even get an email back from them sometimes.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's kind of frustrating. I look and I see, because I know what I really want to do with all of it, and I know that I have some unique ideas in that. Being more of an analytical meathead, still a meathead, more an analytical meathead. I look at things a little differently. My master's is in human performance, which is just physics of human movement. I enjoy studying the movements, the way the body works, and I think a lot of that comes from being a thrower as well. I mean, not just throwing in high school, but I threw in a Highland Games, traditional Scottish games for 26 years. Still enjoy throwing and everything else. So, looking at it that way, just like looking at my idea of core strength, which is the word I don't like the word core, but there's no other way that everybody understands it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and I just think it's so important. And I've done a lot of the things that are coming in and phase out. I've been doing them since the 80s with weighted planks, and I don't mean a 20-kilo plate like I showed you that picture. 60-kilo plate on my back and doing 40-second holds, 20 seconds off, going back up for 40 seconds. Because I listen to what these scrum coaches are telling me, and they don't want them just hitting and pushing. They have to push up as well. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to do it for 45 seconds with no weight. I want to make that challenging. I want the muscle to be not just have some endurance, but I want it to be strong as well.
Yeah.
I like doing good mornings, and I use the safety squat bar on good mornings just so the bar won't run up your neck. And I like neck work with a head harness. I like the 4-way neck. I like some other stuff, but I love the neck, the regular old neck harness. There's two things from Sornex. One called a Hungarian core blaster, which is just like a plate-loaded kettlebell swing with both hands can get on it. So the landmine that they came out with, but the most I get out of that core or that strength in those abs or that strength in the lower back, as well as, heavy squats, cleans. I still love standing presses. And the one favorite that I don't see enough strength coaches around do, everybody likes to do dumbbell rows and machine rows. I like barbell rows.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to put a hand down on dumbbell rows. You grab the bar, lean over to parallel, look at the position of someone in the tight 5, lean over, get that upper body parallel to the ground, and make them row that thing to their stomach. And boy, you find out really quick who breaks at the thoracic spine, where people, like, oh crap, that's why he keeps breaking down. His back just isn't very strong.
Yeah. It's obviously for the front 5, the back strength is a massive thing. Any other exercises you found effective?
I started using for the upper back and the pull and everything, because I want those shoulders to be so strong. I go outside with the straps, or I'm sorry, with a small sprint sled.
Yep.
And I got these spud straps from Sorinex. When they first came out, they were the first one that got rid of the bar across the power rack, and they went to straps.
Yeah.
And the first straps were actually crane straps, like the big yellow crane-loaded straps they move loads with.
Yeah.
I got a couple of those, and I hook it to the sprint sled with a tether, load it up, and I do high pulls. I do rows that way, and I mean explosive rows all the way. I feel it from my head to my butt. Put some weight on there, and instead of just pulling back like a normal dumbbell reverse fly or a dumbbell row, I pull back explosively, or I pull up explosively and just walk down the field back.
Nice.
And most of the time I make some guys do it when they first start coming in, and a lot of times I'll superset it with, because you got a limited amount of time. So after we're done with that, that main movements, and, even though I'm private, I still have to get them out of there after a while. We'll do like standing shoulder press with a dumbbell or a barbell doing military press. Walk outside, do that for 8 reps going down, 8 reps coming back, rest 45 seconds, and do it again. And then just watch these guys just wither away. And it gets them outside. It gets them outside moving. Not everybody's a meathead, no matter if they play in the tight 5 or they play out there on the wing. Not all of them want to be in the gym all the time.
Yeah.
So if they're outside, they're not thinking that they're actually doing any strength training.
Yeah. And
they're just having fun.
Yeah, which is important.
Exactly. Yeah. I want it to be hard, and and the whole idea, I tell everybody, like hard, basic discipline and deliberate training. That's kind of my 4 keys to my training. Not flash, not always fun. It's a workout for a reason. Yeah. But they still have to have fun. If you want them to buy into it, they got to have a good time. And like when I was with the Spurs and I started picking up those guys during the off season, or I would pick up some high school basketball players or baseball players. Everybody, I could convince them to weight train twice a week in the gym. That was easy. Yeah. Trying to get them at third day or a little bit more, it was hard. So we would weight train twice. We would do sprint and agility work on one day, a lot of medicine ball throwing. I'm a real big believer in the medicine ball. And another day we called it like a fun day or a fitness day. They had no idea they were pushing a shopping cart loaded with 100 kilos or 150 kilos of sandbags or weights up the hill, that they were really developing strength with their leg. They were just racing somebody else.
Yeah.
Or piggyback carrying, their partner up the bleachers at the stadium. Or running the stadium, or doing bear crawls or backward bear crawls, or if I could find a hill with a little bit of turf or grass, start about halfway up the hill, bear crawl down the hill, and then backward bear crawl back up the hill.
Nice.
they thought they were but they weren't weight training. They weren't strength training. Not to them, they weren't. They were having a good old time out there. They were challenging each other. They were playing, and then I'd see them 2 days later. They're like, "What the heck did you do to me?" I didn't do anything, man. We were just out there playing, having some fun.
Yeah.
Like, you just look at me like I was crazy after that.
And going back to something you said earlier about kind of having the sort of, whether it's your core exercise or whatever you want to call it, and then transferring that into sport, it's things like that really, really do that. Because like you say, you're getting them out of their comfort zone in kind of positions they wouldn't normally find themselves. Because in a game of rugby, you could be found in, any number of different positions that you're not 100% comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, and you got to keep them healthy.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the hardest things about me, because I've always been a sport coach. I've always been a strength coach for sport. And when you start going private, you have to kind of put your name out there. You're going to put your stuff out there. Otherwise, you're going to be poor in private. And, nobody knows what your name is for the most part unless the players are getting hurt or they're out of shape. That's when they know who the strength coach is.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to know who the heck you are unless something's going bad. Nobody sees when they're doing really well. So it's really important. I try to keep these guys healthy. So yeah, you're right. I really want to put them I want to get them as strong as I can in all the different positions. So, with all that, with the core, we get nice and strong with all of that. And I introduced it to Ben a few years ago. I introduced it to Owen this year, and I had a huge success with a former world boxing champion. I completely changed his whole career in his 30s by teaching him how to not just to sprint, not the long, slow distance that he was doing, but, different sprint drills, 400-meter runs with, certain times and everything. But I took him to the wall with a 4-kilo medicine ball, and I introduced him to different throws that I'd learned from Al Vermeil and from Vern Gambetta, and ones that I just kind of pulled out of my own, and different rotational throws. And we worked up to almost 500 throws a workout twice a week.
Crikey.
And, scoop toss backwards, scoop toss forward, overhead throw, chest pass, different rotational throws backwards, rotational throws forward, just whatever I could think of. And I would sit there and do that with them. So all that work, all that strength, everything that you had for the gym, now you can see it. The same thing you can do with the back with doing, with doing plyos and some short sprints. I can do with the forwards, because I can get a forward to do some short sprints. They're not going to do longer sprints.
Yeah.
For plyos with my forwards, I still like the adage from throwers, doing horizontal displacement jump, like a standing long jump. But it's the landing that hurts the most on those guys, especially you start getting overuse when you got a 120, 130 kilo guy landing.
Yeah.
So I learned to we jump uphill so they can explode, but they're not going to get hit all the time with all of that when they land. Or may jump like on a heavy tire that I have outside the gym for flipping. It's about 24 inches tall, and we'll stand 6 feet away, 8 feet away, and just explode as much as they can, and they're just going to land on that. So they explode even more because they know they don't have to absorb all of that when they land.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Yeah, the feet and their ankles are, they feel great. And, yourself, you want them to explode when they get up off the ground. You want them to move.
Yeah. So
we go lateral. I go, all kinds of different ways, but we just land. And I used to use it for the boxes, but, you always have to stand out there and some of these guys are too damn big. I don't want to catch anybody if they miss the box.
Yeah.
So the tire worked out phenomenally well because it doesn't move. You got a 600-pound tire sitting out there. You can have guys jump on that, and if they miss, all they do is walk through the tire, jump over up the other side.
Yeah.
So they feel a lot safer doing it. And there's another use for my tire instead of sitting out there until somebody wants to play with it.
Yeah, that's some great tips. This is a question we're going to ask all of our guests on the podcast. What do you think is the biggest mistake rugby players make when it comes to strength conditioning?
For me, when I look at it and everything else, there's a couple of them. Treating in season like it's a maintenance phase, that was a big thing for a long time. Oh, we're going to maintain. You're not going to maintain. If you're maintaining, you're losing.
Yeah.
You just get smarter. But yourself with the guys that you're working with, you got guys at your club, but then they're going up to the national team. I mean, these guys are playing for 10 months out of the year. What are you going to do with a 8-week off season?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, I have Ben and Owen both squatting heavy right before 4 days before World Cup. They were doing heavy cleans and heavy squats. Yeah. And not little heavy. But you have to pick and choose your battles with it. So, I designed up a training one that allows us to go hard during the in season, but I also get great feedback from them, and that's the hard one, is you got to have great feedback from the players.
Yeah.
Not just, the analytics, and not just you watching them, but them themselves learning more about their body and becoming more in tune with their body, becoming more professional. Another one is a lot of times not wanting to do trying to get in and just get done. Not wanting to do some of the older school bodybuilding kind of movements you would think about. Or as a buddy of mine from Sornex, Aaron Asmus, is a real good friend of mine. He's a world-class thrower, was an NCAA champion, works for Sornex now. He had a thing that, building muscle that won't wash off in the shower. Doing those high rep shoulder, high rep arm work, or high rep, upper back work, getting heavier on it, getting some good hard work on it. I mean, I started falling back in love because of him with the old dumbbell pullover. Stretching out my rib cage, stretching out my shoulders. My shoulders feel better now in the last 4 weeks since I started doing that. And I worked up to a 60-kilo dumbbell for sets of 12 and getting a nice big reach on it. I feel better now. My shoulders feel better now than they have in years. And I had heart surgery 2 years ago. I got sternum wired together after surgery. Doesn't hurt me at all. So it's really. I think that's a good thing. Trying to make sure that you continue that. Yeah. Trying to pack on some muscle, because that's how I get away with that in-season training. We can hit it hard here, and when I back off by adding exercises that are still challenging, that we're still using some weight, so they feel like they're getting some good work, and I'm adding muscle tissue to them. I'm keeping that body joint strong. I'm keeping all of that. So, and then education. I mean, not just going to school or anything, but the education, learning, reaching out to other coaches and talking. I'm sure that you and I are going to have more than this conversation, yeah, about training and everything else. And when I come over there, have even more, or other coaches that we, meet. I don't know what you guys have over there, but Hammer Strength is starting to put on some great clinics over the last few years. And they're not big like going to the NSCA meetings. NSCA is a wonderful organization. You get some great stuff, but sometimes when you go to the national convention, there's so many people there, you can't get to the speakers. Yeah. You can't talk to them or anything. So Hammer Strength started doing some clinics that are smaller, and you can interact more, and it's one day. And Sornex has started one with Summer Strong. Last year I was at Summer Strong, and while Judd Logan, who's a 4-time Olympic hammer thrower, one of the best throws coaches in the nation, if not the world, he was up there speaking, and I'm sitting next to Joe Ken from the Carolina Panthers, sitting next to Adam Nelson, silver and gold medalists in the shot put from the Olympics, and then just regular coaches from the college level and a professional level. Being able to interact with them and talk to them, visit with them, and that's I like to do a lot. Is I'll go visit coaches if they're open to coming over to visit. Houston Texans changed their strength coach a couple years ago from the more hit machine kind of guy to a guy that's what we call him a Sornex guy. Changed the weight room, everything else went back to power cleans and squats and the things like that. So, but just not training intensely enough all year long. I mean, coaches are asking these guys to come in shape. You got to give them some time off their bodies, otherwise you get injuries. And they need time too, though. They need some mental health time. They need to take a week off, even though some of them it's harder to convince to take a week off. Some you like, hey, I need you to take 3 or 4 days off and shoot before I need you to take. They're already out the door. Other ones you have to argue with, hey, no, you have to do this. You need to take a couple of days and let your body recover. And I think that's just being, educating the player as well. Not just educating yourself, but educating the player as well. Yeah. So they understand, and that way they know that, you have their best interest at heart, and they're going to do anything you ask them to do if you can do that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Ed, where can people learn more about you? Have you got any other? I know you've been doing your front 5 workshops. You got any more of those coming up in the States as well?
I'm trying. Right now, I'm finishing up a presentation that'll be a 2-day workshop, and I want to try to be able to come over and do a couple in the UK, down in New Zealand, Australia. As soon as I finish with that, try maybe turn it into an ebook, maybe. Nice. But and in my website, play hard, train harder.com.
Nice.
And they can reach out to me off of there. I love when people reach out and send me an email off of the website, and be able to trade information, be able to talk to guys. Some people think, oh well, you're this level coach, and I can't. I'm not gonna waste your time, or you're not gonna want to talk to me. I'm like, when I got regular people in the gym, and I'm talking to them, I may say something that triggers a memory in my brain that's been scrambled around enough that, oh yeah, you know what, that's right. And I make myself a little note, and I go home and I kind of research it. I mean, I learn from everybody. I've been blessed to be able to be around Ben and Owen and that professionalism that they have from being with the All Blacks, and I think that just comes from themselves, not just the culture. Yeah. It comes from their father. It comes from Ken. He taught them that way. My association with a real good friend of mine that's the hammer strength rep in my region, 2 of them, Gus Rodriguez and Riley. Really good at and talking to them and trying to learn something from the business side of it as well. Besides doing some speaking with them, business side of it as well. My friend Bert Soren from Sornex, he's fantastic to learn from. He's so easy to talk to, and learn some ideas and pull some things from. And then, like I said, coaches that I just reach out. Reaching out to Davey Gray, who's the strength coach for the Hurricanes, who's a phenomenal conditioning coach. I mean, phenomenal. I love his stuff. But being able to reach out and trade information with him, so I think that's the one thing that a lot of people forget. And the internet's been a wonderful thing for trading information. I mean, there's no way this could have happened, a few years ago or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just it's kind of like I said, for me, it's what I was trying to stay away from. I never wanted to be the internet guru.
Yeah.
And, there's way too many of those around.
Yeah.
And I tried to stay away from it. Well, Ben kicked me in the rear end enough times and gave me enough crap to kind of share what I do and everything else. Like, okay, I'll do it. But like I said, I never wanted to be one of those, what I call them fakes, frauds, and snake oil salesmen.
Yeah.
And, one day I sat in my office and I was just getting some busy work done, working on a presentation. And I started looking around at jerseys on the wall that Ben and Owen have given me from World Cup from the All Blacks, or I have Tim Duncan's actual jersey from the 2000 Olympics that he signed and gave me. One of the boys I played at Texas A&M and then played in the NFL for a few years, his jersey, and then pictures, my degrees, my certifications, but mostly it was the memorabilia, the pictures, the signed basketball, or pictures with the NBA trophy and all that kind of stuff. I was like, you know what? It'd be a shame to just kind of keep all this to myself. Somebody taught me.
Yeah.
So I kind of started putting myself out there a little bit more, and it's been fun. And like I said, I'm still leery about being that. I still really don't want to be known as an internet guru, even though I do quite a bit of online training and really enjoy doing it. Doing a little differently than some of the guys, in that I will allow, within reason, I'll allow the guys to, especially with the iPhone, send me an iMessage of their technique while they're, lifting. Hey, my power clean feels kind of funky. What am I doing? And I can look at it real quick, send back a couple of, quick notes that we maybe have discussed before, or tell them what they're doing, and that. So I don't charge them for it.
Oh, fair play.
Yeah, I want them to be successful. That's the thing is I want them all to be successful to the beyond their wildest dreams. my workout partner, Darren, who I trained this morning, 56 years old, a couple years ago came to me as a master's weightlifter with technique that somebody else taught him. And we worked really hard to work technique that was what he needed. Not what the book said, but what he needed, exercises that he needed. And he's having unbelievable success in weightlifting now. And you can see, even at 56 years old, how much pride he takes in it, how much fun he has doing it. And if you're 16 years old or 56 years old, it's got to be the same.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's a great way to look at it, and you obviously, like, as well as your sort of worries about being a guru, so to speak, you know, you give a lot out, and like say, people are going to get so much from that, and you learn from people yourself, so you feel like, you know, you need to give that back yourself. I think it's great, and you've certainly given a great insight to your sort of philosophy and your training today, and I'm sure our members and listeners will have taken a lot from it, and just like to thank you very much.
Yeah, they can get a hold of me anytime. Like I said, off my website, I usually answer back within a couple of days.
That's great. Cheers, Ed.
Cheers, mate.
So there you go. I'm sure you'll agree, some great insights into Ed's work with the Franks brothers, and some really good training tips, whether it's about, you know, specific work with the front five, so using the safety bar, good mornings, you know, his med ball work, his sled work, some really great training tips that you can use and apply now. So just like to thank Ed for taking the time to talk to us and share that information with you. So right now, I guess, great opportunity to check us out more. Check out www.rugbyrenegade.com. We believe we're the best online subscription S&C program for rugby. Check us out there. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Loads of stuff going on there. And then also give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That'd be great. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more from us with these podcasts. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Renegade podcast. For more quality rugby strength and conditioning information, check us out at rugbyrenegade.com. Rugby Renegade, building machines.